Hello, so as you know, I don't often make videos about the issue of Brexit, simply because it's an ongoing thing. We're going to be hearing about this until March 2019. It is important, but I just feel it's already a very widely covered subject, and I'm tired of hearing about it. But it is important. I'm not suggesting that it's not. But what I do want to discuss is some of the side effects of Brexit. I'm not talking so much in terms of trade or politics, but socially speaking. Socially speaking. Today, the BBC had a report that was widely shared. And basically, they were interviewing three students at three different universities. One was Newcastle, one, I believe, was somewhere in the Midlands. And anyway, there were three different institutions. So this wasn't a concentrated thing of one university. It was obviously given an example of how this is spread around. And there were three students who had voted leave during the referendum last year. Now, all three reported being stigmatized and feeling like they were being targeted for their political views by Remain voting students. So here's my take. I voted Remain, as some of you may know. And just a disclaimer, I don't want the comment section here to open up into the pros and cons of Brexit, right? That's not the issue I'm raising here. The issue is about respect and abuse, or lack of respect and abuse. I have to say, I was appalled hearing what these students went through, and I think it's very believable because in recent years there has been a deeply, deeply intolerant trend in British universities, and it's also been apparent in North American campuses in Canada and the United States of a deeply intolerant faction of left wing student activism that isn't content with just disagreeing or disliking other points of view. It actively goes to the point of stigmatizing other students, bullying other students, and verbal harassment. It's wrong, period. Um, but what I found shocking was the number of young people who were coming onto the BBC item to defend this behavior and say either they're exaggerating or I saw one person say, "Oh, is this like the Christian persecution thing in the US?" There's differences, but this is a very real thing, and I'm so grateful I'm no longer at university because there is plenty of examples, and this is not the first example of left-leaning students showing intolerance towards students who are either in the centre or the right. I had a heated argument with a guy earlier who tried to say that everyone who voted Leave is either a racist or stupid. Now, this lazy way of dismissing 17 million of your fellow citizens is utterly pathetic. I've always resented the Remain side, of which I was part, being branded liberal elites. And I still say that. I still think if you believe that all Remainers are liberal elites, you're wrong. But what is clearly happening here is there is this very, very smug, condescending, nasty attitude coming from especially students that is, if you didn't agree with us exactly on the Brexit issue, then you're either a horrible racist who voted the way that you did because of immigration or coming from a point of racism, even though that was only one issue and people were voting for a wide range of issues, or the stupid, which is incredibly condescending. They won't explain why they're stupid. They're just like, oh, it's scientifically proven if you voted leave, you're stupid. No, it's not. No, it's not. I know plenty of intelligent people who carefully reflected on this and voted leave because they genuinely felt it was the best decision. It's a decision I happen to disagree with. I can't see very much good coming from that decision so far, and I'm not particularly happy about it. I don't like the way this is going. I don't like the tensions that are building between Britain and the rest of Europe over this. But that was a democratic decision. It was weeks of campaigning, extensive debate, and people decided to vote out. I don't think it was as decisive as the Scottish referendum. It was 17 million to 16 million people. It was relatively close, but the fact of the matter is the Leave side won the referendum. Now, I know since then a lot of Remain campaigners have said that they were given false information, etc. Okay, whatever you think about the way it's going, and I certainly have my reservations. There's a few things I want to say, and both sides need to really accept these points. Firstly, from the point of view of the Remain side, and as a Remainer, I want to say this: we have never been a country whereby the side that wins are the only side that isn't allowed an opinion. So it is legitimate for Remain voting people to ask questions and to say, what are we going to do about this? What direction are we going to take with that? That is legitimate because this was not a general election, it was a referendum. It will impact our future. So it's totally legitimate to ask questions and to criticise aspects of how this is going. That is entirely legitimate. But if you also voted Remain and your attitude is that all Leavers are racist, if your attitude is that all Leavers are thick, all you're doing is showing your own sense of smug self righteousness. Voting Remain does not make you more clever or a better person than those who voted Leave. It doesn't. I voted Remain, but I'm no lover of the European Union. I have serious issues with the European Union. I do think there is arrogance in the corridors of power in Brussels, and I think that there has been statements from EU officials that have not exactly helped matters. Undemocratic statements, I might add. I happen to believe that our membership of the EU is preferable to being outside the bloc, but like I say, this is not about the pros and cons of Brexit. It's about basic respect. And look, I understand that this is an emotive subject, but this is not about having to be friends with people that you disagree with. It's not even about having to like them. But it is about not bullying other people. It is about not stigmatizing people and giving them a hard time just because they have a different point of view. I have extremely strong views on the issue of the United Kingdom and Scottish independence. But I'm not going to go up to Edinburgh and go to someone who appears to be a Scottish nationalist, maybe they're wearing a Yes t shirt, and just start a big argument with them. I would just avoid it because what is the point? Yelling in someone's face isn't going to get them to see reason. So, what I found shocking was the sheer number of young people trying to defend this. I'm relatively young, I voted Remain, and I don't like the way this is going. But let's stop, to fellow Remainers, stop having this smug sense of self righteousness that you're smarter than someone who took time, reflected on the issues, and voted Leave because they genuinely thought it was the best thing. Yes, there will be people who had a reactionary response. Yes, there will be people who voted maybe for racist reasons. But you cannot say that all 17 million people voted for that reason. And it is true that we have a problem with racism in this country. I think only a fool would say otherwise. And it could be argued that that has been exacerbated since this. But I still maintain that if you're going to dismiss all 17 million people as one and the same, you're doing nothing to, you're just doing nothing positive for this country. And if your position is, I've actually seen certain Remainers saying, I hope we fail. Now, if you're such an egomaniac that you want to see this country fail just to prove your side of the argument right, that's that's disgraceful. I voted Remain, but if we are going to leave, I want it to be a success because I care about my country. That's the way you should feel if you care at all for this country. We're still Europeans, as far as I'm concerned, um, and no one can ever take away your European identity. And that's the point. It's We've left the EU. We're not leaving Europe, the continent. We are still Europeans, and no one can stop us calling ourselves Europeans. And I will stand up to leavers who want to say, who get into blood and soil nationalism and all that sort of stuff, because they're wrong. But what these three students were talking about is not made up. It's not exaggerated. There has been a very palpable, evidence-based trend of far left very intolerant students behaving this way. I've heard people compare it to the Red Guards in China in the 60s. That's obviously a bit of an exaggeration because no one is dying. But we are talking about verbal bullying. We are talking about very unpleasant sort of stigmatizing of people, treating them like social pariahs because of their views, and that is wrong. If you feel strongly about Brexit, if you hate the fact that we've chosen to leave, I totally understand that. And I'm not asking you to be friends with Leave voters. I'm not asking you to even particularly like them. But do not just throw out words like racist as if they can be thrown around. That's poisonous, divisive nonsense. I'm not saying that there isn't racism, but I am saying that if you're dismissing 17 million people as racist or stupid, you are wrong. There are people, I know of someone who is married to an immigrant and they voted leave. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is someone who is coming from a point of view of racism, that doesn't really add up, does it? That they are married, they're in an intimate relationship, a loving relationship with an immigrant, but they voted leave because they felt the EU had become too bureaucratic. That was their reason. Nothing to do with animosity towards people from other races. So I find it deeply frustrating. And when Remainers are typecast in a certain way, is it any wonder when you get this sort of regressive left, intolerant nonsense? As a Remainer, I condemn it. I'm embarrassed by it. And I want to say to any Leave people who are watching this, we are not all like that. Okay? We do not all believe that if you voted Leave, you're a racist. I think that's total nonsense. I think some Leave voters are racist, yeah, of course there are. But to dismiss it in such black and white terms is utterly absurd. And I think universities should take action on this. Where there is clear evidence of students being bullied, then they need to stand up to that and say universities are places of learning, they're places of debate, but you can't have a situation where some students are marginalized and bullied simply for the views. It is wrong.